I'd like to welcome you to the first Harker Speaker Series event of the year featuring decorated astronaut Dr. Gregory Chamitoff. The Harker Speaker Series was launched in 2007 to bring leaders and visionaries from a wide variety of fields to share their expertise or unique experience with Harker parents, faculty, and students, as well as the broader community. Mayor Chuck Reed, whose meeting of Dr. Chamitoff at a San Jose event many years ago resulted in the San Jose city flag flying into space, extended an invitation for Dr. Chamitoff to come back to San Jose for a visit. In planning that visit, Dr. Chamitoff contacted us hoping to visit his alma mater, Blackford High School. Yes, many of you may not have known that we have some Blackford alumni here. We'll hear about them later. Blackford High closed many years ago, and Harker's Middle School now occupies his former high school. So, as the next closest high school, we were thrilled to extend an invitation to the city to host Dr. Chamitoff. We're delighted to welcome you all here tonight to hear him share his story with the community. In addition to tonight's appearance in the Harker Speaker Series, this week Dr. Chamitoff will be speaking at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group Breakfast event, the Boy Scouts Breakfast, San Jose Rotary, and Peter Burnett Middle School. He'll also be participating in a NASA flag-raising event tomorrow night at City Hall, followed by a ceremonial recognition along with the director of NASA Ames from the mayor and council at tomorrow night's council meeting. There are several key partners involved in Dr. Chamitoff's visit to San Jose. San Jose Mayor Chuck Reed and the city of San Jose, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, the Boy Scouts of America, and in-kind support by Robert Hendricks, general manager of the Avatar Hotel in Santa Clara. We have some very special guests. I'd like to mention our city council member, Pete Constant, is here tonight. Pete, you want to say hello? Big wave. Thank you. And I'm told we have 3 former Blackford High School teachers and 2 of Dr. Chamitoff's Blackford classmates here tonight, and he'll talk to you more about them later. So we're very pleased that all of you can join us. And now I'd like to introduce our Harker senior, Paul West, who will introduce our speaker. Paul is a senior this year, and he's heavily involved in many things here at Harker, including robotics, swimming, and orchestra. So we're very pleased to have Paul introduce Dr. Chamitoff. Thank you.
Hi. Dr. Gregory Chamitoff is an electrical engineer, aeronautical engineer, and astronaut. He was born in Montreal, went to high school at what is now the Harker Middle School campus, and studied at Cal Poly, the California Institute of Technology, and MIT. Dr. Chamitoff began working on NASA projects at MIT, including stability analyses of the Hubble Space Telescope, upgrades to the shuttle's autopilot, and, for his PhD thesis, new methods of automated flight control for hypersonic vehicles. In 1998, NASA selected Dr. Chamitoff for the 1998 class of astronauts. 2 years later, Dr. Chamitoff was qualified for flight assignment as a mission specialist. Since then, Dr. Chamitoff has worked in the Space Station Robotics Branch, acted as crew support astronaut for International Space Station Expedition 6, and been the lead capsule communicator for ISS Expedition 9. Dr. Chamitoff has also spent just over 200 days in space, including 6 months on the ISS for Expeditions 17 and 18 as flight engineer. Dr. Chamitoff conducted the final spacewalk of the shuttle program, during which he helped attach the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer 2, a particle detector intended to help search for antimatter. Among his other achievements, Dr. Chamitoff was the first man to bring fresh bagels into space, and is the only astronaut to challenge 6 ground control centers to games of chess from the ISS and subsequently win. Dr. Chamitoff also performed the first magic show in space and acted in Apogee of Fear, the first and only science fiction movie to be filmed in space. With that, it's my great pleasure to introduce an extremely inspiring man, Dr. Gregory Chamitoff.
Thank you a lot. Thank you very much. Also, let's give Paul a round of applause here. Thank you, Paul. Well, thank you very much. It's really great to be here. This is my hometown, and I don't get to come here very often, and so it's really neat. On my way to the school here, I drove past my old house and took a picture, and I drove past, as you heard, Blackford High School, where I went to high school, is now Harker Middle School, and I drove by there and I took a picture to send to my mom. So it's really neat to be back home again. And you know, this is you know, a very special school, the Harker School, which is, you know, took over the campus where I was in high school, and always hope to come back someday. It's a very reputable school with great programs and great teachers, and you students who are here, you're very, very lucky to be here. So on the way here, I was trying to think about memories of high school, and it's funny because, you know, yeah, there's memories of like working hard and taking tests and spending time in class, whatever, but the memories that were the strongest were kind of very strange ones, and I'm almost hesitant to share some of them with you. Actually, the strongest memories are more recent. They're actually nightmares. And I don't know, for you guys who are past high school now, do you have these dreams, you know, where you realize, oh my God, I never finished high school. I forgot to take a class. I forgot all about this class, and now all of a sudden you're back there and you're taking the test, and oh my God, I haven't studied this stuff for, you know, for a month, or I haven't been to this class. Does anybody have this experience aside from me? I've had this dream my whole life. It was like, oh my God, and then I show up to the class and go, you know, wait a second, I haven't been here in weeks, and so this maybe after tonight, now that I've come back, you know, those dreams will stop, but you know, the other thing I was thinking about on the way here about memories was, it was a funny thing, and you guys tell me if you disagree, but it felt to me like in high school, who you were was defined by where you had lunch, and who you hung out with for lunch, and which room you were in. And we had all these like different groups, and I don't think I belonged in any of them. So there was the French room, right? So my teacher here, she had it was a French club, and all these cool people would hang out in her class, you know, for lunch. And sometimes I was there, and then I, you know, this is too French, you know, and I'd go somewhere else. And you know, then there was a drama group, and I had friends in that, and I used to do some of the technical work for the lighting and the sound for some of the plays and things like that. So I used to hang out with these people, and I'd go to the drama, you know, class, you know, for lunch, and boy, there were a bunch of weirdos in that. And you know, so I thought, okay, this isn't right. You know, then there was the chess club, and you know, I'd go to lunch and play chess, and these guys were really nerds, you know. But then I thought, wait a second, I started the chess club here, and I don't want to hang out. No, you know, then we had I was in the band. I played guitar in a jazz band, and sometimes would hang out with the jazz band folks, and you know, and that was pretty good. But it was kind of like the band camp, you know, from American Pie. You know, also like all the misfits, you know, were there, and all the beautiful and popular people. I have no idea where they were for lunch. No one would ever tell me. So, I think my friends here, they knew where they were, and they wouldn't tell me. So I didn't fit in that group either. And then there was the science laboratories, and I used to hang out in the science laboratories. And I think I finally found the group that I belong with in the science laboratories. But a couple other memories, and sometimes the pranks and things like that are what stick with you. And you know, I remember coming back at night, you know, to the parking lot, and we'd play hockey on the parking lot with these torched tennis balls. No, don't do this. This is not a good idea. You're gonna get in trouble for this if you do this. Don't do this. But it's, you know, this is something we did. And I remember like getting poison oak. Like 60 of us at once got poison oak because one of our teachers had this brilliant idea that they would teach us how to do compass course navigation, and they took us into the hills here by, you know, the silver mining area, and everybody got poison oak. So this was a terrible idea. And another memory I had was, and some of you will have this kind of memory, is I remember the first time I tried to ask a girl to go out with me in high school, and it was a disaster. And what happened was, you know, this is something I had, you know, worked my courage up for weeks, and then, you know, she said, oh, maybe we could go to Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I said, what does that mean? What's that? And she laughed at me, and I left. That was it. So that didn't go over very well. And there was one other thing that I remember doing, and this kind of leads into, you know, kind of where I ended up. As a friend of mine, and we had this great idea for a prank, we were going to build a flying saucer, a real one, that would fly around the neighborhood and scare all the neighbors. So we were going to fly this thing remote control. And we actually built this thing, and it's still in my mom's garage. And it actually flew. And I don't know, is there anybody here who does airplanes, model airplanes or anything? There was a certain engine size, a .049. This was like a .35. It was a massive engine. And it actually took off, you know, and it flew. And it was so scary, we kind of waited for the engine to stop, and that was the last flight of that. But the interesting thing about that was, you know, I'd wanted to do this my whole life, you know, and I'm joking about high school, but of course I worked really hard in high school, and you know, had a lot of very positive, you know, academic and great experiences with teachers and friends. You know, I wanted to do this since I was 6 years old. My family saw the launch of Apollo 11 when I was a kid, and my dad and I used to watch Star Trek together, and it's been a dream my whole life. But I never did anything about it until high school. And then in high school, when I wanted to make this silly flying saucer thing, I actually called NASA at NASA Ames, you know, right here in the neighborhood. And, you know, because I thought, well, gee, a flying saucer, you know, it's got a certain shape. It's kind of like an airfoil. Like if it's moving, it should have lift. It should fly. But how do I calculate that? How do we work that out? And so I wrote a letter to NASA, and somebody actually wrote me back. And I still have this letter, you know, from a long time ago, you know, explaining exactly how the lift would work on this flying saucer. You know, and we went ahead and built this thing, you know, based on what this NASA engineer did. And he inspired us. And that was actually the first contact I had, you know, with NASA. And the next time I called was many years later to ask, how do I do this? How do I become an astronaut? So anyway, I was inspired by an engineer at NASA Ames to take that next step. So anyway, my dreams came true. At least some of my dreams have come true, and I'm here to share that with you tonight. I also, you know, want to say a few words for the students here about, you know, how to make your dreams come true. You know, thinking about what I did, what was it that worked for me? There's some things that come to mind, and one of those things is doing your best. You know, and you know, you have to set your own standards in your work, and the standards that you set are really for you and based on what you can do and what you want to do. You can't compare yourself to the people that are sitting next to you. If you want to be president of the United States someday, it's not the people who are sitting next to you in class that you have to do better than. It's a lot of other people. And so you have to set your own standards and always apply yourself and do the best that you can do. The other thing is you have to be interested in a lot of different things. You know, your teachers and the school decides what curriculum you should have, and there's a lot of things you'll be forced to learn, essentially, that you may not like. There's a lot of subjects you say, well, this is not my favorite subject. I don't like it. I'm not going to pay attention to it. Well, it turns out those subjects, you know, later on in life could be very important to you. You know, if you don't like history, you don't like language, or you don't like something like that, some of these things can come back later and be very important. And the other thing is you don't want a subject that you don't like to bring down, you know, your overall performance on all the subjects you do like. So, you know, it's really important, especially in today's world, to have a really broad background and be interested in many different things. And the other thing is skills. You know, sports and hobbies, whether it's music or dancing or anything that you're interested in doing. These are the things that you love to do, you have a passion for, and things you have a passion for are things that end up defining you, the things that build character and make you who you are. So learning skills and being interested in different things like that, those are things that really make you who you are and really matter in the end. And the other thing that came to mind was the teachers. You know, in my job right now, everybody is my teacher. I meet with an expert on something, and they have a half an hour or an hour to explain everything to me that I need to know about something. And I have to treat them like an expert. I'm the student. And that's true for everything. And it's true with not only your teachers in school, but everybody, even your friends. You can learn something from everybody, and if you show everybody the respect that you can learn something from them, they have something to teach you, this is another thing that will really serve you well throughout your life. So these are some of the ideas that I, you know, thinking back on what I did. You know, whether I did these things automatically or I did them because of the mentors that I had. These are the things that will help you achieve your dreams. So anyway, I'm here today to really to share with you the experience. I just got back from the space station a couple of months ago. This was the second to last flight of the space shuttle program. It's called STS-134. It was the flight of Endeavour, the last flight, 25th flight of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. And I flew previously and lived on the space station for 6 months, as you heard. So this was actually the flight that finished the construction of the space station. So I'm going to show you a few pictures here so you know what the mission was about. I've got a video to show you after this that I think you'll enjoy, that'll make you feel like you're right there with us. And then if you have some questions, I'm happy to take your questions. Can we switch to the remote mic? Okay. So this is my crew, and we had everybody had different roles and different nicknames, actually. But Mark is the one in the center sitting down. He was our commander. You may remember, there was a shooting in Arizona. His wife was the one, Gabby Giffords was shot. And so this was a big impact to all of us, of course, to her and him, and something we've all lived through together as a team and had to work our way through. We were very, very fortunate. He was able to fly with us. It meant a great deal to us to have him fly with us. We've been in training for a couple of years together, and we're a really great, tight group. And it worked out really great that he could do that. On the left over here is our pilot, Box, Greg Johnson. We call him Box, or the Box Man. And he's an Air Force pilot. And between him and me is Mike Fink. Mike Fink's the current record holder for the US for days in space. He flew 2 long-duration flights on the space station, and it's something like 384 plus or minus 2 or 3 days that he flew in space. But we call him Spanky. That's his nickname. And we keep modifying that. Spank-a-lang, spank me, spank you. Is some version of spank something. He's kind of our class clown, too. And then Drew is the next one over next to me on the other side. And we actually called him Grumpy, but we don't like to talk about that. No, he really wasn't. It was just funny. But he was our lead spacewalker for the mission, and a terrific guy. And next to him is Roberto Vittori, and we called him Ricky Bobby. So he's the Italian astronaut. He has no idea why we call him Ricky Bobby. And eventually we showed him the movie, and he still doesn't understand why we call him Ricky Bobby. But it's very funny. Mark didn't have a nickname, and it was and when we were actually approaching the space station, Roberto, Ricky Bobby, he had a job to do. He was supposed to count down the last few feet, and he was measuring it a certain way, and every foot he was supposed to say, there's the next foot, but he was saying, Mark, Mark, Mark. And Mark doesn't have a nickname, and his name is Mark, and so he's like trying to fly the space shuttle, and Ricky Bobby's going, Mark, Mark, Mark. He's like, what do you want? I'm trying to fly the space shuttle. It was a little challenging. You should have had a nickname. It was really neat. We for this flight, so this was in May, and there's my family watching the launch. We were actually delayed a couple of weeks, so a lot of my family and friends, made it to the first attempt, and then weren't able to make it back. And the Obama family made it to the first attempt, and unfortunately didn't get to see it. But the nice thing about that is we got to meet the family, and you see my daughter in the lower left there. Her name is Natasha, and Sasha, the president's daughter, her actual name is Natasha. Sasha's short for Natasha. So the first thing the president said to my daughter was, I have a daughter named Natasha. And boy, my daughter she tells everybody that the president's daughter is also named Natasha, which is really neat. So the launch is absolutely spectacular, and it's something to see. It's kind of overwhelming to see it, in terms of the sound and the light, from the outside. But inside, it's really not what you'd think. I kind of expected it to be really violent, and it's not as violent as I thought. In fact, I kind of thought it was kind of like a Disneyland. A Disneyland ride might actually be worse, because at Disneyland they try to prove to you that this was rough and violent, and it's really amazingly smooth considering what's going on. But you really feel a kick, in the pants on the way up. The acceleration is really fast. And unfortunately for the spectators this time, we went through a cloud bank pretty quickly, so we disappeared into the clouds. And so they only saw us for about 20 seconds, and that was it. They didn't see us again. But there's F-15s that patrol the airspace, around the Cape during the launch, and one of them caught this picture of us. So this was amazing. And
And apparently on the ground, you could see the shadow on the clouds there from the bottom side. But it only takes 8.5 minutes to get to space, but it takes a couple days before we actually approach the space station. The reason is really we're just checking out the space shuttle, getting everything ready, testing out all the systems, and then gradually getting closer. But it's really the coolest thing to do this because a lot of times the space shuttle is actually flying upside down and backwards, and that's basically to protect radiator panels from micrometeorites. But when we approach a space station, you're forwards like an airplane, wings level, cockpit forward, and the front windows are just beautiful, panoramic windows. And so you're just way over the Earth, and you see a dot ahead of you on the horizon. There's 2 spacecraft up there, and you're following that one. You're rendezvousing with that. It's really neat. It's like right out of a movie to do this. But we get closer eventually, and it's an overhead window. Now we've seen it, prior for most people in training, they've seen different modules, in different parts of the world, in training. But to see the whole thing together, it's absolutely massive. It's really, if you laid it down flat, it's the size of 2 football fields. I mean, it's a little more than 300 feet in one direction, a little less in the other direction. It's absolutely huge. This is the picture. And this is interesting. The shuttle is attached on the top there. And so you may wonder, how the heck do we get this picture? And the way it happened was, we realized that the space shuttle was going to have only one more flight to the station, and we don't have a picture from away from the space station with the shuttle attached. So it so happened during our flight that the Soyuz vehicle, one of the 3 Soyuz crews was going to leave on, I think it was day 5 for us. And so what happened, and they have a certain trajectory they have to fly. So what we did was we actually maneuvered the space station while they were moving away so that they could get a picture from the Soyuz capsule as it went away. And you can see in this picture, there's like a little arc at the top near the shuttle. That's actually a robotic arm reaching around underneath the shuttle. We inspect the tiles, after the launch, actually on the 2nd day. And just to give you a sense of, the geometry here. So, out on the extremes, you're seeing the solar panels. They're massive. They're 240 feet long, and they're absolutely massive. These little vertical things next to them are radiators for the solar panels, and these big groups of 3 going down are radiator panels for cooling for all the station equipment. And along this core, that's where most of the living compartment is. So the bottom is Russian. The very, very last one on the bottom is actually a European cargo vehicle called the Automated Transfer Vehicle. It's the 2nd one that's flown. And then a little further up, it's Russian. And then when it gets kind of busy in the middle, it switches to the American side. You're looking on the right side there. It's a new module with a cupola window with views in all directions, which is just spectacular. The airlock is over on the left side. And then this main truss. You'll see more pictures of that. And then going forward from that is, so off to the right is the Japanese experiment module, and off to the left at the top there is the European experiment module. So we come on board, and we're greeted by friends. And this is one of the things you kind of don't expect. Like, you might imagine doing this one day, but you don't think, oh yeah, when I get there, my friends are all there. These are people we've trained with for years, and so it's really a great greeting to Dima Kondratyev on the right. I spent many, many years training with him. He was the commander at this moment. And Paolo is Italian. He was in my class. We trained together for years. And here's Mark coming on board. And we don't have a lot of time on this rendezvous day. We have a lot of work to do right away. And but I wanted to mention, so this is a picture of the shuttle payload bay attached to the station. It's hard to make out everything in the picture. There's not much point in me trying to explain anything other than the arm. On the right side, that's actually the shuttle robotic arm. So it's a very big robotic arm that we use to take things out of the shuttle payload bay. And there's another big arm on the space station, a robotic arm to install things on the station. And this beam going across the shuttle, that was something we came up with after the Columbia accident to inspect the whole shuttle for tile damage after launch. So it's been held there by the shuttle robotic arm, and that's what we use to look around and inspect the shuttle. In fact, we did find some damage. That's pretty significant damage, pretty obvious damage. That inspection boom has some laser equipment on it to measure depth and 3D imagery. It's a very, very sensitive instrument. You don't need a sensitive instrument to figure out you got damage there. It took the ground a couple of days to look at that, and they decided that, it's going to be fine for re-entry. We didn't have to fix it. But we did spend time training spacewalks for how to repair that if we had to before launch. So if we had to fix it, we would go out and fix it. But then we had two major things that we brought up on this mission. One of them is this platform here. It's called ELC-3, and I mention the name only because you'll see it in the video. Express Logistics Carrier 3. Anyway, it's a platform of spare equipment, and we were putting it out on the truss. And the reason for everything on there is basically for the longevity of the station. After the shuttle stops flying, there's a lot of things like pump modules, and there's a tank of oxygen on here, and there's a part of a robotic arm, and there's things that we expect to eventually fail or use up their service life, and we're going to have to replace them. And this was a pallet of spare equipment that we need to be able to go to the 2020 and beyond that. So we installed that. And here you're seeing a handoff from one robotic arm to the other. And does anybody play video games here? This is a lot of fun. This is like a video game. Flying the robotic arm is, there's two hand controllers and lots of screens and lots of information, and you're basically, picking things up and moving them. But if you look out the window, it's real stuff, and it's big stuff that you're moving around. And here we're handing off this ELC platform from the shuttle arm, which is the closer one, to the space station arm, which is the further one, which is actually a much bigger arm, and installing it on top of the space station. The other thing that we brought up, which is very important, and it's really the primary thing for our mission, was this alpha magnetic spectrometer. And in case we forgot what it was called, they put the letters on the thing for us. But this is like a $2 billion physics experiment. It was 16 countries worked on this. It's been in work for about a decade. And it's basically like a telescope. It's looking at particles, though, instead of looking at light. And as I'm sure you know, we know a lot. What we know about the universe, we know from telescopes, looking at light, looking at photons coming to us from everywhere. And as you look at galaxies and things that are further away, it takes longer for the light to get to us. So you're looking into the past and seeing how the universe evolved. Well, there's some questions that are still there's some questions about the Big Bang Theory and what's right and what's wrong and whether that theory works or not, that are still unresolved. And one of those is that when we look at galaxies, you see a spiral, and you can see how the stars are moving. And basically, there's a rotation, there's a motion because of gravity, like something spinning around the center, right? And you'd expect a certain speed of everything as you move away from the center. And there's a black hole in the center of each galaxy, and there should be a certain speed of everything. Well, that's not the speed we see. And so there must be some mass there that's in fact, it's much more mass than the mass we see to explain the rotation that we see of galaxies. So this is called dark matter, because we don't know what it is. Physicists don't know what it is. They have some bounds on what they think it could be. And this experiment is designed to look for dark matter. And this isn't something that's sitting somewhere. It's distributed everywhere, because it has to be in order to explain the rotation of the galaxies we see. So that's one of the things that AMS is going to be looking at. And anyway, we took it out of the payload bay here and installed it on top of the truss, and that's where it is now. But I think I have one more. No. The other thing is it's looking for antimatter. According to the Big Bang, there should have been an equal amount of matter and antimatter, but right now we don't know of any natural antimatter. But it could be out there. And this has got a giant magnet in it, and it can tell whether something coming through it is matter or antimatter. And if something comes through it, it also knows which way it's pointing, so it'll know that particle of antimatter came from that galaxy. And if they discover an antimatter galaxy with this, that'll be a fundamental breakthrough. It's probably the most important experiment we have on the space station. Of course, it's a fundamental physics experiment. And it's great that the space station can support it. The advantage for us having it there is that we can handle all the data flow from that and all the facilities to support it on the space station. Mike and I lived on the space station together before, and it was neat because they kind of welcomed us back as space station residents and put us to work on some serious space station maintenance tasks. But we overlapped for about 6 weeks at the end of my first mission and the beginning of his. And one thing that Mike did that was really neat, and I was looking forward to it again, is every single morning, he would kind of come by where I was sleeping, and he would say, wake me up, and say, Greg, guess what? We're in space. And it was the greatest way to start the day, And you know, in training for this mission, I just looked forward to that the whole time, and we did it again. You know, every morning we'd see each other. Guess what? We're in space. But this was a carbon dioxide scrubbing unit, and it had 1,000 parts. You can see actually in the next picture, you can see all the hoses and lines and everything. And it took us like 9 hours together to take the whole thing apart, fill all these bags with parts, and put it all back together. And hopefully it worked. And you know, we were just, in the last hour, we were looking like, okay, we don't want to find like one part left in the bag. And go, where does this part go? But anyway, the next day we heard it was all working fine. And so we did a good job. But we also did some work on an oxygen generation system and a couple other things that, you know, were tasks that were suitable for guys who'd lived up there for a while. So it was fun that we got to do that on this, because this was a short flight, only 2 weeks. But although the AMS, the cosmic ray particle thing, was the priority for our mission, we did a lot of spacewalks on this flight. And the reason for that was, again, setting up the space station for the long haul so that it was ready to continue and work for many, many years without the shuttle. We'll have other vehicles going up there bringing supplies, but the shuttle was really the vehicle for building the space station. And so we did 4 spacewalks. Here, Mark and Mike are getting Drew and I ready to go out. This was the first spacewalk of the mission. And that's my first step out the door. And but it's just the most amazing thing you can imagine doing. It's incredible that we can do this, you know, and it took me, I think, you know, I was out there twice, and overall about 13 hours, and I think finally in the 13th hour, I could believe I'm really doing this. This is absolutely for real, and this is great. And I had a great time. But you know, when you first come out the hatch and you look down, that hatch is pointing straight down at the Earth. And you look out and you see the Earth, and it's 220 miles below, and you're going to go out head first, and you're going to kind of do a flip, you know, and hold on to a handrail. And so your first moment out there, this is actually like after the first moment, but you know, just be a little bit lower. But basically, you know, the whole space station is above you, and you're hanging on this last handrail at the bottom. So you kind of feel like you're like in, you know, and you're holding onto the wheel, you know, and you know, it's really amazing. And you have to convince yourself that it's okay to let go, because you know, you have work to do. So. First thing I did, I had a tether on my waist, and I took the hook and I put it on the handrail, and I checked that it was locked, and I said, okay, I let go, and everything's fine. And then I was able to go from there, because otherwise you'd spend your whole time like holding on really tight, you know. But it's really amazing. There was one other moment, you know, worth sharing with you. It was at night, you know, and the thing is, we train in the water, you know, because things can be neutrally buoyant in the water. You can practice physically what you're going to do, and it's very complicated with lots of tethers and tools. But we don't turn the lights off in the pool. We never do that. But you know, during the spacewalk, you know, it's dark a lot of the time. Every 90 minutes we go around the Earth, you know, and you know, it could be 40 minutes of light, you know, or 50 minutes of light, you know, 40 minutes of dark, something like that. Depends on where the orbit is, you know, how far the orbit is precessed away from the sun. Anyway, it varies. But it's dark, and when it's dark, you know, all you have is this light on your helmet that's lighting up the work space in front of you. And there was one time when I had my hand on a handrail, and I was looking, and you know, and the thing is with the training, and the training is so thorough that if all I see is this, and I see a number on the truss, I know my next step is to do this. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm all choked up or it doesn't matter. You know what you're supposed to do next. But I was holding on the handrail, and all I could see is this area. Everything else was dark. And I kind of pushed off and turned around like this. And, you know, I couldn't see the Earth. You know, the moon wasn't out at that moment, so, you know, I couldn't see the moon, obviously. The moonlight wasn't lighting up the Earth. It was totally black. And it was just an amazing moment, because I look back, this handrail represents my bed, my family, my whole life, my Blackford High School, everybody I know is this handrail. And out here is this infinite unknown, infinite, you know, and you know, I knew in one direction was the Earth, although I couldn't see it, but every other direction, it's trillions and trillions of miles to the next thing, except if you happen to be lucky and hit a planet. And, you know, anyway, I decided to go back this way. but it's an amazing, amazing thing. It felt like the edge of, you know, the reality. Just to give you a sense of scale here, this is just one part of the space station. You know, the solar panels are going off the screen in both directions. I'm in the middle there. I'm kind of camouflaged, but I got red stripes with a break in them. So when you see in the movie, you can tell if the red stripe is broken. That's me. Drew's out there way on that right side, and he's got solid red stripes, and Mike has no stripes. But just for a sense of scale, that's AMS. That's the thing we installed. And Drew is actually up there working on an experiment. A lot of experiments are outside, a lot of experiments are inside, but this is an exposure facility. Basically has thousands of experiments in it to see whether it's paint or coatings or seeds or plants or materials, how they'll perform in the vacuum in the radiation environment and the thermal extremes in space. And then that thing was out there for over a year. We brought it back in the shuttle bay, took it down, and then all the different researchers can look at their parts and see, you know, how well they performed and use those, you know, to design the next systems or the next experiments. Can't really see on this screen. Actually, you can turn the lights down. Can we turn the house lights down a bit? There's a nice picture of Mike's face there, but you can barely see it. And a picture of Drew that I like. This was a picture that Mike took of me. So you can see Mike reflected in my visor. Oh, that's much better. Jeez. Should back up a little bit and show you some of these. Yeah, let me back up a few so you can just see these. And you'll see them in the movie as well, but I'll show you these outside ones at least. You can get a better picture now. There you can see Mike's face there. And there's Drew waving. And Mike and I were working on replacing this little, next to my right hand, there's a pin there. That pin is part of a grapple fixture for the arm. So that boom I was talking about before, we left that boom. That boom is an inspection boom for the shuttle, but it's not needed for the shuttle anymore. So we left it on the space station. And one of the jobs on our last spacewalk here was to, this was now the 4th spacewalk, was to install that boom on the station and make that grapple fixture compatible with the station robotic arm. And this is with a very wide angle lens. And you know, just to give you a sense of what you're looking at, I mean, in the bottom right corner there, you can see part of the shuttle wing underneath the handrail I'm holding. And on the left side, that vertical module there is part of the Japanese module. The shuttle's right behind me, the nose of it's sticking up. And anyway, it was, and this was a picture we planned for me. So when we train for spacewalks, part of it is in the pool underwater, but part of it is in a virtual reality simulator, just like a video game. So we got these goggles on, we got our hands in gloves, and if you move your hands, it moves in, you know, in the virtual environment. And we can practice certain parts of spacewalks in a virtual reality simulator, which is really neat. So one of the times I was in that simulator, and I was waiting for them to do something, and I was just kind of climbing around on top of the space station going, oh my God, this is going to be an amazing view if I really get to do this in this spot. And in fact, we did. And so this is the end of the last spacewalk. And we're on top of the platform, that ELC-3 thing I told you we installed. We're right on top of it. Think about it, it's the highest place you can climb up to on the space station. So it's got this panoramic view of the whole space station and the Earth below. And it's a very wide angle lens. We brought it special for this picture, actually. So it's very distorted. But all the way on the far right side is that ATV, that automated transfer vehicle, the European cargo vehicle. All the way on the left, of course, is the shuttle. Looking all the way across the truss, it's like 330 feet away almost. You see solar panels there. This big thing here is a radiator panel, but it's not bigger than everything else in the picture, but it's just distorted that way. But this was a really amazing moment because after 12 years of construction, after 36 shuttle flights to build the space station, and during this spacewalk, we hit the 1,000th hour of spacewalking time. So we were out there, when officially, we crossed 1,000 hours of spacewalking time to build the space station, and we were able to announce space station assembly is complete after all this work by 15 countries for all this time. And so we shared this moment. We saw the sunrise from up here, and we shared this moment with all the flight control centers around the world that, after all this work, this is what we accomplished together. It's really amazing. And I want to end this slideshow with this picture because I've taken about 22,000 pictures in space over all the time. This is my favorite one, and I took it during this mission. As soon as we got on the space station, I moved as soon as we docked, I got all my stuff and I moved over because I was going to live on the space station for the 2 weeks. And I had a favorite spot I wanted to sleep. And it's right by one of the Japanese experiment module windows. And this is the view out that window. And so I had my sleeping bag set up right next to this view. And every night I'd get into my sleeping bag and I would open up a shutter and I would look at this view and I would just stare at it until I was forced to go to sleep. I couldn't keep my eyes open any longer. It's an amazing view of the Earth, going by. That you see a bit of the atmosphere glow, and this incredible sky of stars. And normally you can't see that. This is a really sensitive camera that I took this with, and it's a neat view of the Earth and of the space station. But the thing I like about this view and the way it feels on the space station. You feel like you can reach the future from here. You feel like you're already part of the future. And all you need to do is go a little faster, and this whole space station, which is really comfortable to live on for 6 months, can take you all the way to Mars. The solar panels would do fine, provide all the power you need. It feels like the future is within reach when you're looking out the window from up there. And it also feels like a prosperous future for planet Earth. So this picture, I think gives you that feeling. All right, well, thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Chris,